This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY.
WBNY Buffalo.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of 91.3 FM WBNY, the United Students Government at Buffalo State, or Buffalo State itself. Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
To join Mr. Hare on today's Living for the People, dial 878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. Or go to facebook.com/91.3 WBNY and comment there. That's facebook.com/91.3 WBNY.
Boy, that was a loud, lead-in. Hello, this is L. Nathan Hare. Welcome you to our program, Living for the People. Our broadcast focused on providing insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And, of course, our program is live, so you can call and join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We are welcoming back our in-studio audience of one, Norma Carter. Welcome back from Vacation World and all that money and favor and love. And don't be saying that you don't like Donald Trump when you're rolling around in his same money. Come on now, tell the truth.
Mr. Hare, don't do that to me. But thank you for the welcome. It's great to be back, sir.
Okay. Is that the chariot that's out there in the front? Oh, okay. And, of course, we're here with Willie H., who is our citizen of the 21st century. He's the engineer that knows all there is to know about how to do the live streaming of these programs. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare. Make sure you guys call in. We want to hear from you. 718. I forgot the number.
878-5104.
That should be like natural.
And, Willie talks about me when I forget names, but he had brain lock right there.
I did. 878-5104. That should be automatic now.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So listen, I want to take today's program, since we're at this stage where the accusees, is that the right word? The accusees?
Accusations?
Well, yeah, whoever's receiving the accusation, I'm calling them accusees. Okay. I'm probably making up a word. But all of those people that Donald Trump has, District Attorney Fannie Willis has brought indictments against 19 people altogether, counting Donald Trump himself. Those people have to present themselves to the Georgia Fulton County Courthouse for not their arraignment, but for their booking.
Wow.
That has to be done by 5 o'clock on Friday, this Friday coming up.
Okay.
Since we're at this stage now that we're booking people for crimes, I thought it was a good time for us to re-summarize. I was telling Norm before we got started here to re-summarize where are we actually at, on this thing?
Yes.
So we started out with all of this federal stuff and the conspiracy stuff and, people from all over the country. But now we're honed in, to people committing specific crimes in specific jurisdictions.
Yes, sir. So
we need to try to understand, well, what is really at play here? Are we trying these individual crimes of fraudulently claiming that you were an elector to the Electoral College? Are we trying that crime, or are we trying another crime? And what Norma and I were talking about before we get on the air was that in Georgia, you have a RICO law that's a little bit different and broader reaching than the RICO law that the federal government has. I mean, they're still called the racketeering influence and criminal organization. It's still the same nomenclature, but in the Georgia law, you are actually charging a person, not just a person, you're charging a body of people for becoming organized into a organized enterprise for the purpose of engaging in a crime.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
So you could be legitimate, whatever you are, council person, county executive, whatever you are, you could be all of that,
Yeah.
doing your regular job. But because you allowed yourself to get sucked into a conspiracy where people used you to do something to illegally, change the outcome of an election,
Yes.
to change the outcome of a process, the process of sending certified electoral college votes from a county board of elections to a state board of elections, from a state board of elections to the federal joint session of Congress. If you're doing something like that, that's a conspiracy to deprive the people of the United States of the votes that they actually cast.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Now, in my view, suppressing somebody's votes is virtually the same thing. So if and we'll talk about this today too, if you target particular communities and say, I'm going to do some things to prevent your votes from you to even vote at all, or if you vote to prevent your votes from being counted, that to me is the same level of conspiracy. That's fraudulently depriving people of this country of their right to vote.
Right.
So I think that's the same level, but it's not looked at as the same level, in this country. It's treated as if that's a violation of election law. But the federal law or the state law that's being prosecuted here is that the several people in Georgia, some 19 people, operating in Georgia. They not necessarily Georgia residents, but they were operating in the state of Georgia to manipulate something in the state of Georgia, to deprive the people of the state of Georgia of their right to vote and their ability to have their votes counted. That's the conspiracy, right? And we need to understand that we should have a visceral reaction to that.
Yeah.
And Norm, you as our citizen, our audience of one, I'm asking you to represent the rest of the citizens here. How do you feel about these people taking away several 100,000 of your votes?
Well, Mr. Hare, first and foremost, I'd just like to chime in on the fact that when you look at the whole case and the way that they organize and mobilize themselves, they were all intertwined together. That brings, especially in Georgia, because they charge the whole grouping as
enterprise.
as an enterprise,
Right.
and they're bringing them together. I'm looking at this right here, that I think that they're going to, as we discussed earlier. We don't know or even know if they're going to be able to get to Trump, but we need to get the key factors within the group.
Norm is being polite now. Norm was saying, how much time are they going to give Trump? That really was his question.
That was my Trump originally, But,
and I honestly, I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around. I'm not talking about justice now. I'm just talking about what people can feel doing. By the time this case against Trump gets completely prosecuted,
right.
Trump's going to be 81 or 82 years old. For you to give a guy who's 81 or 82 years old even a 5-year sentence that you got to serve at least 3 years on, in order for you to be eligible for parole, even if that were the case, that would make him 85 by the time he got out of prison. The likelihood is he would die in prison. That America would sentence a former president to that outcome, I just don't think that will occur.
Well, that's what you spoke on earlier. But Mr. Hare, as we spoke earlier, as important as it is that I think, speaking for the people, it is to get Trump, but in all likelihood, we may not get him.
Mm-hmm.
It's super, super important to get his minions so that we can set an example and show that this can't ever happen again.
Right. Now, I don't want us to let this escape. I think Trump is going to get convicted.
He'll get It'll get
Out of those 91 charges, he's probably going to get convicted of 96 of those charges
yeah,
because he is guilty as sin.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's not the issue. The issue is not whether or not he's going to be convicted. The issue is whether or not he's going to be sent to jail. Now,
Yeah.
all those people who are younger, the Kenneth Cheeseburrows and, all of those, younger people that are involved in this conspiracy,
Yes, sir.
Ronna McDaniels and so on, they're going to do some time. If they are convicted, they're not going to get off on probation. So, some of those 18 and 19 people are going to do some time.
Can you speak on Giuliani and Sidney Powell?
Now, Giuliani, I don't see him doing time either, although they may figure out some way to sentence him with some kind of a criminal sentence, then suspend the enforcement of the sentence and give him some probation for some 3 to 5 year period. Take his license away, his law license away, and fine him, with something. I don't even know if you can fine him now because I think all of his money's been sucked up, by legal expenses, And he went to his homeboy, I guess the guy who he thought was his homeboy, Donald Trump, who was, he was licking Donald Trump's shoes and whatnot, not his shoes, but something. Well, you know what I'm talking about, right? He was doing all of that, and you would think that Donald Trump would have his back. I mean, Donald Trump's a billionaire, right? I mean, it can't be costing $1 billion to defend this guy. So if it costs $10 or $20 million, I would have thought that Donald Trump would have backed this guy up, but he isn't. Now, I find
Donald Trump knows when to retract and move away. I mean,
but Trump must feel that he has enough on Giuliani that whatever it is that Giuliani has on Trump is outweighed by what Trump feels he has on Giuliani.
Okay.
Because you would think that Trump would try to keep Giuliani in his favor.
Yes, sir.
Right? But he's not doing that.
But he's got a history of any time that there's been a closeness or anything that even have come, he pushes away from these people, that even the people that, even like his last lawyer, what was his name? Cohen? Was that his?
What's his name? Michael, was it Michael Cohen? Yeah.
I'm just saying.
The attorney, right.
Yeah. I mean, he pushes away. And he distances himself.
Right. When he doesn't have any use for you anymore,
yes.
then he drops you.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think that's what, in fact, that looks like what Donald Trump has done with Giuliani. But what I don't understand is why is Giuliani still in Donald Trump's corner? If Donald Trump has put Giuliani in a position where Giuliani's done all of these wrong things, and he's on the hook now with several felony indictments against him because of his supporting enterprises orchestrated by Donald Trump, why would Giuliani still be in Donald Trump's corner when Donald Trump clearly is not in Giuliani's corner? Giuliani's going to be bankrupt when this thing is all over and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump's not going to be bankrupt. So there's more to the story, right? And we may never know all of the nuances of these stories. Donald Trump may have had pictures of Giuliani dancing around in women's clothes. Well, see, I knew y'all. I knew you
Mr.
all.
Hare introduces different things to the program.
I knew you all were going to laugh at that one, but I'm not making that up. That actually took place. Giuliani was actually. This is when he was still mayor of New York. And he was like in drag or whatever drag means. He was in drag. And, this is like some kind of, rich people party and whatnot, right?
Right.
But he's got makeup on and women's clothes on, and the whole shot. And they said that wasn't the only time he had done that. He
brought out true colors coming out, sir.
Well, maybe that's what Trump got on and said, listen, man, you represent me. Otherwise, I'm going to let everybody know.
So I'm just saying that there's got to be some reason why Giuliani is not turning against Trump when Trump has clearly turned against Giuliani. So I don't know what that reason is, but I just think that that's out there. So I just wanted to take us real quickly through the actual conspiracy itself so that we all have it in our minds. We understand here's what's being talked about. And then you have to decide as an audience, and I'm hoping you all will call in, and give us your thoughts about this. You have to tell us, or you have not to tell us, but you have to decide amongst yourselves, do you consider what I'm about to share with you a significant enough set of things that this should be prosecuted and punished? Do you think that this is so wrong that it should be prosecuted and punished? So I went to an article written by Farnoosh Amiri. This was written by the Associated Press on how the Trump fake electors scheme became a corrupt plan, according to the indictment. That's the set of crimes that we're talking about. So the role that the fake electors played is at the center of a 4-count indictment against former President Donald Trump and other people. And among the charges, what prosecutors say was a massive and months-long effort to impair, to obstruct, and to defeat the federal process for certifying the results of the presidential election, culminating in the attack on the Capitol on January 6th of 2021. That's the crux of what Fani Willis is charging these 19 people with. In her 45-page indictment, it states that when Trump could not persuade state officials to illegally swing the election in his favor, he and his Republican allies began recruiting a slate of fake electors in 7 battleground states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, New Mexico, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Now, I want to put a little note right there that what Trump initially tried to do was to get the secretaries of state or the governors in these 7 states to get them to actually change the number of votes that were counted for Trump versus Joe Biden. If that had been done, that would have been illegal, but that would have been a different issue. If you said that, well, we said he got 2,700,000 votes, and then you come in as the Secretary of State and say, no, he didn't get 2,200,000 votes. He got 2,100,000 votes, and the other 1,000 votes went to Donald Trump. That would be illegal, but you would have to go through a process of proving that those votes were illegally shifted. That's a different issue than what Donald Trump ultimately wound up doing, since he couldn't convince Raffensperger and whoever their equivalents are in all of the other states to just give votes to Donald Trump. They went the other way and said, what we'll do is we'll frustrate the process of sending the Electoral College votes to the joint session of Congress. And we'll frustrate that by putting up a fake set of electors. Go ahead.
I hate to interrupt, but I'd just like to ask a quick question, sir. Can you reiterate how many votes Trump needed in the way that you the way that you do this? You know,
you just like for me to say this
for the people, Mr.
I just need 11,781 votes. Just one more than we got. Just one more. I'm begging you now. You had 5 million votes in your state. I know you can find 11,781 votes.
Can you find them for me?
I mean, you can't be more guilty, than this guy is. But we've known this for 2 years. We had the tape for 2 years, right? But that's another piece of the story. So, what Trump and his allies tried to do was to get a alternate slate of electors to be submitted to the joint session of Congress and to the National Archives and Records Administration, because what that would do is it would either create the wrong electors who would cast the votes for Donald Trump that were not actually Donald Trump's votes, Electoral College votes. They actually were Joe Biden's votes. They should have been casted for Joe Biden. So you could have caused that confusion, or you could have had 2 different slates in front of Vice President Michael Pence, who, as Vice President, he's the president of the Senate. You would have had 2 different slates of legislators for the same state. Then Mike Pence would not have been in a position to say which one was right and which one was wrong,
right?
Because he's just opening the envelopes,
right? His
so,
only job.
So now he's in a position where he's got to say, well, what do I do next? Who do I go to? This needs to have a different process. So then it would go to some kind of a judicial process. All of that would take time. All during the course of that time, the transfer of power on January 6th would not have taken place. And Trump would still have been the president during the course of that time period. And he felt that he'd be able to work out something where they'd be able to drive the vote on whose electoral college who electors were that were going to be the electors sent from your individual state, to have that decision made by the joint session of the Senate and the Assembly in each of the affected states, so that they'd be the ones who would appoint the electors. And of course, they would appoint Republican electors because they were Republican states. Go ahead.
Mr. Hare, this is something that's kind of out of the box and something we haven't discussed. I'm wondering, what if this had went through? Now, without him, without Vice President Pence, you know, saying that he wasn't going to do it, or had it went through, and Mr. Let's say Trump was deemed president,
right?
Could that have been changed or overturned after that point? Once we got into it and figured out that these fake electors were not who they were, you know, who they were.
Again, in this country, we have not only laws, we have a system of norms and customs that are not actually written laws, but they have been the way that we have bound ourselves on how we act, you know, as a country. Part of that is that when an election is over and you concede, which is what you're speaking on, right?
Yeah.
If Joe Biden, after all of this hullabaloo about these who's the right electors and whose votes counted and so on, if somehow that worked out where Trump wound up on the winning end of the Electoral College votes and Biden wound up on the losing end, the custom in this country has been that the loser concedes. Not just concedes, you formally concede.
What if he didn't concede, though? What if he said...
If he didn't concede, then it would be still be an open question. You'd still be litigating the thing in court.
Okay.
Donald Trump would still be president until it got litigated in court. But if that was not the case, if Joe Biden, just like Al Gore did in 2000, you had these 500 votes, the hanging chads, you know, and so on.
Yeah.
And Al Gore said, well, I'm not willing to put the country through what it's going to go through if we push this any further. You know, this is going to turn into a muscle, you know, campaign between Biden and Bush. And he just wasn't willing to put the country through all of that. So he conceded, even though afterwards it seems clear that Gore should have gotten the majority of those votes, of those 500 votes.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
But because Gore had already conceded, the convention in this country is once you concede, you concede. That's it. You conceded. And you have to live with your concession. Okay. Now, that seems harsh and it seems ugly, but think about it from this perspective. If that were not the case, you could have elections being hung up every 4 years, never being able to get done with an election. You can see what the Republicans do. They'll litigate everything. You use a paper envelope instead of a plastic envelope. You use a brown bag rather than a plastic bag. You know, they'll come up with all kinds of things to litigate. And things would just take forever
Mr. Hare,
to resolve.
Here's my, just like Trump did this year, and as we say, sometimes precedents are set. Now, due to what's going on right here, or you know what I mean, in the last election where he tried to hold it up, it seems to me like the Republicans may try to do this every time.
They will.
I mean, you know what I mean?
They will. You are absolutely right.
Yeah.
What we have done is we've opened up Pandora's box.
That's what
and we've let the demons out into the environment. And the demons are going to continue to do what demons do. They're not going to stop, okay? I mean, just look at what's happening right on a slightly different issue with regard to educational curricula in Florida.
Yeah.
Because the state schools in Florida are governed by the State Department of Education in Florida, and the State Department of Education is an executive office in Florida, so it is under the jurisdiction of the governor of Florida.
Okay.
The governor of Florida says, well, I feel like, that these people ought to be taught that slavery prepared, black people for certain careers. They could become bricklayers and
Wow.
and pilots on boats, and
Wow.
they could become welders.
Wow.
It was a good thing. I mean, I know y'all got some feelings about it, but it did leave these skills, in these black people, and it gave them a foundation for them to stand on.
Well, I guess that's one way to look at it.
That's not even one way to look at it. Stop saying that.
I know,
Stop
but
saying
I'm
that.
just saying.
Stop saying that. Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that. Stop.
Wow.
That's like spit. That's like spitting on yourself. Don't do that. Don't spit on yourself. Right. But you understand my point here, right?
Unbelievable.
See, so that if they would use their majority to do something like that, to actually eviscerate the curricula that is taught to children in Florida schools, to imply that slavery was not slavery, in fact there was a town, I think it's spelled Ocee, Florida, there was like a Rosewood situation, where 300, 400 people were murdered, and so on, right? Same kinds of issues, claiming that, some white woman got raped when it didn't take place, and then, going to snatch a guy out of jail and lynch him, and make it a big public spectacle, lynching, this person and whatnot. That was done. What Ron DeSantis has insisted on is, if you teach that, you have to teach it that there was a riot that took place in OC, and there were killings that took place on both sides. Black people killed some white people, and some white people killed some black people. That's not even true. It's not even a true statement.
Blatant lie.
It's just an outright lie, right?
Yeah.
But the Republicans voted that into existence. That this is the curricula that is to be, and it's taught as education standards.
Wow.
It's not taught as if this is one of the books you could read, when you're not busy, you could read one of these books. It's not that kind of education. This is the actual standardized curricula that everybody is going to be taught.
Mr. Hare, isn't there's a saying out there, if we don't know our history, we'll be forced to relive it.
You're doomed to relive it.
Now, with that, not knowing these children coming up, not knowing, you know what I mean. You have to be able to defend and protect yourself.
You got to understand when that proverb that you spoke on, that if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. You have to understand that the people who are repeating their history want to repeat their history. The people who are doing this are the people that want to see this history repeated. They want us to be enslaved again.
Right.
They want us to have less rights again. They want us to be second-class citizens again.
Right.
This is what they want.
Or they would say, we want to be in a position where we're privilege. We don't want to lose our privilege.
Okay,
that's what they might say.
Stop euphemizing what I'm saying.
Well, I always try to look on the other side.
I know. Stop doing that. Stop doing. The audience is mad at you now. They're throwing pies at their radio.
Some of the audience might kind of like agree. Yeah, he got a point there. They might be there.
You're gonna cause people to crash their cars. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. Okay. I appreciate your empathy.
I always like to look on the other side.
I appreciate your warmth and whatnot.
I put my shoe in their shoes to kind of understand, maybe.
So I just want us to understand what went down here. So it was all part of a corrupt plan to subvert the federal government function by stopping Biden's electoral votes from being counted and certified. You have to understand, when you're talking about the Electoral College votes, now you're talking about the votes of all of the citizens in your state. So if you got 5.5 million voters in your state in Georgia, and those votes are not counted, ask yourself how you would feel. Set all the other issues aside. Just look at the most fundamental nugget of this issue. 5.5 million votes cast by citizens of Georgia were actually thrown into the wastebasket, or at least they were attempted to be thrown in. They weren't thrown in, but they were attempted to be thrown into a wastebasket and to be replaced by a few hundred votes in the state assembly and the state Senate of the state of Georgia. That's what was actually, underway. That's what Donald Trump was orchestrating.
And when this is a question, Mr. Hare, just wanted to ask. And when they go to the state assembly and the state, in the Senate, it's broken up. So therefore, like I say, this is a question. The votes that are broken up would not be, let's just say, black votes put together or Democratic votes put together.
No, in this case, the votes of the citizens of Georgia, if this had gone the way Trump wanted this to go, it would be as if the people in Georgia did not vote at all.
They didn't vote.
So their 5.5 million votes didn't count at all.
So these votes are coming from mainly whom?
So the people who would wind up voting would be the state assemblymen and the state senators of the state of Georgia. In New York State, you got a state assembly and a state Senate. You have the same kind of thing in Florida. So you figure there may be 60 to 100 senators, in Georgia, maybe 300, assembly people in Georgia. Those people together may make up 400 or 500 voters.
Is Georgia a red state?
It's a red state.
Okay.
Well, I should say it's a Republican state.
It's a Republican
But what I mean is that the state assembly has a majority of Republicans and the state Senate has a majority of Republicans. So when the Republicans have the majority in any process, in any deliberative process or legislative process, they always use that majority to do things that are in their interest, that are not in the interest of people as citizens of the United States. They always do that.
So that's a vote loss for the Democrats, even had we won it originally.
Well, not just a vote loss. You figure if there are 16 electoral college votes in Georgia, all of those votes would have gone to Donald Trump instead of those votes. Now, if that happened, there were 7 states that were involved in this. If that had happened in 7 other states, Biden would not have won 270 electoral college votes. He therefore would not have had enough electoral college votes to become president. Now, Donald Trump may not have had 270 votes either, but this would put the election in a position where state legislatures, there are 50 states, you would have each one of those state legislators vote, instead of their citizens, their state legislatures would vote for who the electoral college representatives were. Since you have 30 states that are Republican-controlled states, you'd end up with 30 of the 50 states' votes going to Donald Trump, and only 20 of the 50 states' votes going to Joe Biden, and Donald Trump would have become the president again, would have been reelected as the president of the United States.
Last question.
That was the scheme.
Real quick. Are all of the 7 states that they tried to turn, were all of those red states?
They were all states where there was Republican legislatures.
Right. And
they may have been states
they
where
had the majority.
Right. There may have been a majority of Democratic registered voters in that state, but the number of Republicans versus Democrats in the state assembly and the state Senate in each of those states, the Republicans had the majority. That's why Donald Trump felt that he could get away with
all
this.
Republican votes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So listen, that music is on, which means that Norm took up some of our commercial time.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We're going to take
that's him blaming it on you. It's his fault. It's Mr. Hare's fault.
We'll take a quick break. We'll see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo.
They are our love bugs and companions. They are our pets, our family, and they make life better. When we face unexpected challenges, so do our pets. That's why we're on a mission to support people and their pets. Whether donating a bag of kibble, sharing an Instagram post of a lost cat, or welcoming a foster pet into your home, every bit of kindness counts. Visit petsandpeopletogether.org to learn how to be a helper in your community. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan here, your host. We're here with Norm MacArthur, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome back after your long vacation.
Thank you, Mr. A.
And we're here with Willie H., who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare. Call in 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104.
Now, one of the things that I want us to continue to pay attention to, I harp on things because it seems like we have to keep saying things over and over and over again because other people are saying things over and over and over again
definitely.
that are soiling the way that people are reasoning, the way they're thinking about stuff.
Definitely.
I listened to an MSNBC report last night where they talked about, the Republican first Republican debate is coming up, and it's going to be, they were talking yesterday. It's going to be tomorrow, which will be today. Debate is coming up, and Trump is still in the lead. He's supported by 40%. In many polls, he's supported. He's the choice, of the voters. Now, when you say that, that makes it sound like that's the entire body of the electorate. But that's not true. It's not that he's the number one leading vote getter for the in the polls for president of the United States. That's not true. He's the leading vote getter in the polls for the Republican Party's nomination.
Right.
Just for their side of the discussion.
Right.
If you talk about the general public as a whole, you got to be talking about independent voters and Democratic voters.
Right.
So when you go to the, I thought I had pulled this down. I may have it in another piece here. That this was what do you call it? The Real Clear Politics poll that we look at a number of times, and in that poll it indicated that Donald Trump had almost 47% support in the public as a whole. Donald Trump had 43%.
I'll say that again. Say because you might have said that wrong. Say it again.
In the Real Clear Politics poll, which averages something like 9 polls, averages out, how many people were behind Trump, how many people were behind Biden, and so on. The last one that I saw indicated that Biden was favored for the presidency by 47% of the public.
47% Biden.
Trump was favored by 43 and some change.
43%. Okay.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that to me is important because they keep saying over and over and over again that Trump is the leading, a vote getter, the person that's being supported, by the public. That's not true. He's being supported by a majority of Republicans. Why they're supporting this?
And the media is pushing Trump like we are.
Right.
Believe it or not, we push Trump too because we talk about Trump all the time. So everybody thinks Trump is the man, the one that's leading.
Absolutely true. Because, whatever you hear, remember what we have said many times, right? You become what you hear.
Right.
But, Mr. Hare, just chiming in real quick. And I've always thought this, that the person that wins the popular vote is the one that usually is the one that's elected president. But now, since I've been here with you and really learning a little bit more about the way that things work, the one who wins the most electoral votes is
Period.
Is the one.
Period.
So
you could have won
popular vote.
Right,
I mean,
you could have won 160 million of the popular vote.
Right.
You could have everybody in the country voted for you. If you don't win the electoral college, you are not the winner of the presidential election.
Wow.
Right? It's the anomaly of how the system was set up. In this country.
But to me, and I'm not going against democracy in any way in the way that things are done, but that to me doesn't seem the most democratic way.
It's not. That's why we're called a republic, and not other countries are called, democracies. We're called a democratic republic because your vote for president is not a direct vote. You're voting for this elite body of people, right, who then get to cast the first round of votes for the president. Let's suppose that the first round of votes that were cast in the Electoral College did not result in anybody getting 270 votes. Let's suppose that can happen.
Yeah.
So let's suppose that occurred. Let's suppose you had some third-party candidates or fourth-party candidates, and they took enough votes away from Trump and Biden that neither Trump or Biden got 270 Electoral College votes. If that occurred, then you would go to a second ballot. In the second ballot, the people who were voted in for your state, like your state voted for Electoral College representatives. If you were Republican, you voted for a Republican slate of legislators. If you were a Democrat, you voted for a Democratic slate of legislators. Let's suppose that you now have to go to a second ballot. Those legislators who were actually on your particular party's ballot don't have to vote the second ballot for you. They can vote for anybody they want. They're free to vote for anybody else that they wanted. They're only obligated, and even the obligation is not a true obligation. It's not written in stone that on the first ballot, you have to vote for whoever's party you were nominated to the Electoral College for. That is what you were supposed to do, but legally, you don't really have to do it. So here's how that could go. Let's suppose that all the way up until January 5th, the day before the joint session of Congress meets, that you were sane, you were completely sane, and then we found out at noon on the day before we were supposed to count the Electoral College votes that you just went nuts. You're now certified as being bonehead crazy, right? If that were to occur and you were the one that had, the majority of the Electoral College votes, those electors could choose not to vote for you.
Wow.
They could choose to vote for somebody else, right? I just want you to understand that that's the distinction here, that it's not popular vote per se. The popular vote elects people to the Electoral College, but the Electoral College elects people to the presidency. And we need to understand that distinction because even though it may never occur, the possibility of misconduct can exist. And we have seen now that the Republicans will engage in legal misconduct. Right? Because when they changed the education law in Florida, that wasn't illegal. It was miscreant behavior. It's something that should not have been done. And all of the citizens in Florida have to live with the consequences of the misconduct being engaged in by these Florida Republican legislators. It's not illegal. It is just unsavory. And it's the unsavoriness of what these people have been doing that I feel that the American public needs to be reacting to.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And I'm just not sure that the American public is doing that. An underreported aspect of Trump's scheme was to get Republicans in key states to decertify votes in primarily African-American districts. Now, we talked about this in 2021. We haven't visited on this, since then, but I think it's important that we understand this miscreant behavior, legal miscreant behavior, is what's been going on for at least 20 years. as the Republicans have been using the electoral processes, the democratic processes in this country, to essentially gerrymander, districts so that they always wind up with the majority of Congress people, the majority of state senators, the majority of state senators, and so on. That they've been doing, these kinds of things that are actually illegal, or I shouldn't say illegal, that are unsavory.
Right.
They're not illegal, but they're unsavory. You're doing things, that violate the spirit of what it is that we supposedly have agreed on how we conduct ourselves as a public. And that's what has sort of kept the wheels on the bus in our democracy. You start doing these unsavory things, even if they're illegal, people start losing faith in the democracy itself. Now the wheels are going to start coming off the bus of the American democracy, and we're going to be in trouble. And that's what I think we need to be focusing on. On Tuesday night, this was an article written by Teresi Ngarurua. I'm saying that name wrong. Ngangura. That's how you say it. Ngangura. Tarise Ngangura. This was written for Vanity Fair. That Trump wants to steal the election by disenfranchising thousands of black voters. This is the point of this article. She said the Republican Election Board in Wayne County, Michigan, refused to certify. This is now a few weeks after the November 30th election. The Republican Election Board, which has to certify the election in each county, the election board has to certify the votes in those counties. They were refusing to certify the election votes, the popular vote in Fulton County, which includes the city of Atlanta. They refused to certify the election results. According to the New York Times, one of the canvassers, a woman named Monica Palmer, a white woman, said that, this is in her words, said that she refused to certify results in communities, or that she would certify results in communities other than the city of Detroit. I'm sorry, I had the wrong county there. This Wayne County is in Michigan, and this Monica Palmer, who is, I guess she's the state Secretary of State for the state of Michigan, she refused to certify the the popular vote in Wayne County, not Fulton County, and but she was willing to certify the results in other communities in Michigan other than in Wayne County. So the votes were all fine everywhere in Michigan except in Wayne County, where the city of Detroit is,
which is predominantly,
which is 75% black. It was another miracle.
Yeah.
Out of all of the places in the country whose votes should not have been counted, the only ones that Donald Trump picked on were 7 jurisdictions that were 50 to 75% black or African American voters.
Wow.
Wow.
So while they ultimately backtracked hours later after a massive outcry, this blatantly partisan act of voter suppression made it clear just who the Republicans are targeting in their bid to discredit the election results in 2020. They were targeting black voters. Yeah. Essentially, they were saying that black voters should not have their votes counted because black voters don't vote for the people that we like for them to vote for.
Right.
Wow.
They vote for people who black people like to vote for.
Right.
How dare you vote for people that you like to vote for? What do you think this is, a democracy? What's wrong with you? So
Wow.
The New York Times noted that that Biden received nearly 95% of the vote in Detroit, which is more than 75% black. The rest of Wayne County, which voted for Biden by a smaller margin, is more than 3/4 white. Despite already losing a number of dubious legal challenges, Trump's campaign lawyers, led by Rudy Giuliani, continued to try to manifest an impossible win for a candidate beaten decisively in the Electoral College and popular vote. in Michigan, according to Mother Jones magazine, the Trump campaign has filed litigation to throw out the votes, to throw out the results in only Wayne County. Out of all of the jurisdictions in the state of Michigan, the only votes they applied to have the votes thrown out, not recounted, not hand counts, not cyber ninjas coming in, and forensically evaluating the voting machines, not anything like that. Throw those black people's votes out entirely. They're not really citizens in the first place.
And their votes are no good.
And who voted for the 14th Amendment in the first place?
Wow.
We didn't vote for that. I mean, this is how this really is rolling. And it's important for people to understand this is what's at stake. And while you may feel like, well, it's only happening to black people, we're not black, so it's not our problem.
Right.
Trust me, I've said this over and over again, talking about this what's the word? The proverb that was provided by this German priest, right? They came for, the handicap, right? They came for they came for the gypsies, they came for all these other different people, and I didn't say spit because I wasn't handicapped. I wasn't a gypsy. I wasn't Polish, or whatever it is they came for. But one day they knocked on my door and they asked for me. Why are you asking for me? So I went next door to get some friends, right? But there was nobody next door on that side. So I had to go to the other side, knocked on the door to get some friends. There was no friends because they had already gotten the friends. There was no one left. They come from me. The point is that if you allow them to do this to black people, they will do this to Native Americans. They will do this to Polish people. They will do this to English people. They will do this to orange people. They'll do this to everybody. Anybody who's in their way, they will do this too. Do not sleep this, right? So this is the crime that I'm trying to get America's public to understand. The crime is that Donald Trump and his minions sought to actually eviscerate the votes of tens of millions of American people to set their votes, for all intents and purposes, into a wastebasket and not count those votes at all in order for him to be able to use other parts of the electoral process to put himself back into the presidency. That's what really has gone down here.
That's crazy.
And you can't allow that to occur. Even if it's just you don't like, black and brown people, even if that's how you feel, you can't let this go down. Go ahead, Norm.
This was another topic. Just wanted to ask. I've been watching a little news over my little time off, just kind of wondering, has Donald Trump's momentum since he's been indicted on the last, I guess, 19 counts, has his momentum been slow?
It appears that he's held on to the same lead in the Republican, primary race that he's always had, and maybe increased it by 1 or 2 percentage points. Yep.
But you know what? I've been looking, and it's almost like I've seen, and I can't name names, but I've seen certain Republicans that are retracting and kind of, in a way, pushing away from Trump a little bit because they see that you know what I mean?
Right. Well, you would think out of the tens of millions of Republicans in this country, there would be at least two, that would say Trump's a bonehead. I don't want him to be president of the United States.
I'm looking at a few on it, a few on it. Okay.
Right. See, so the problem here is what I'm trying to help people to understand how significant these crimes are.
Yeah.
If you let these things go down, if you let this happen, then it becomes the norm.
Right.
The next time we have an election in 2024, what you allowed to happen after November 3rd of 2020 will happen again, except the next time it happens, there won't be any law against it. It'll become precedent. Mm-hmm. This is what you did last time, so we can do that again this time, right?
So we need to create laws at this point.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, you've been doing that, but the problem is you have to go through a legislature, the House of Representatives, that is controlled by the Republicans. Since all laws have to actually start in the House of Representatives, there's no way to get the law in front of the Senate to be voted on if you can't get it out of the House of Representatives. So that's the conundrum that we find ourselves in.
Wow.
That's what democracy is supposed to do. The American public has to stand up and say, no, we don't accept this. Look what happens with this abortion stuff. The abortion stuff is an anomaly. You know, when the Dobbs decision went down and said that the Roe versus Wade no longer is the precedent in this country, that you don't have a right to abortion, you know, in the United States. When that went down, you had particularly white women all over the country going completely bonkers. Black women went bonkers too, but more white women, in terms of what you saw in the public, went bonkers over this thing, right? And they put so pressure, a place like Kansas, the state of Kansas, which is a bone red state, they voted to ensure that in the state of Kansas, abortion rights, a woman's ability to govern her own body, were affirmed in the state of Kansas. So you can't stop abortion from taking place in the state of Kansas. And that's being repeated in Ohio and being repeated in other states, you know, around the country. The public, in other words, you know, stood up and said, I will not allow this kind of conduct to go further. We as a public will stand up against it.
Okay, here's my question, and I got a question and a comment. The question is, how did they stand up? You know, what did they do? Did it come basically from, here's my comment, from voting, starting on the levels of what we do here, who we get in office? Because if we can't get a vote out of the House of Representatives, how are we in any way going to be able to change laws in any way?
Remember, there are a few ways you can get laws changed. In a state, you can get a referendum on the state's ballot that does not require you to get the sign off of the state's assembly people and the state senate people. You can do a petition in each of the electoral districts in your state. Let's say there's 5,000 electoral districts in your state. You could do a petition in each one of those districts. And if you get enough, say 5% of the voters in each of those districts to sign the petition, you can get that measure, the ballot measure, put on the state ballot. And that could be something that could be voted on directly by the citizens without having to pass through the state legislature or the state senate or the state assembly. So that's one way to get things done. You can also, what you should do is vote out anybody who does not agree with you that a woman has a right to control her own body.
Right.
You just have to throw those people out.
Yeah.
And you got to do the same thing on the congressional level and on the U.S. Senate level. So there are lots of ways that you can affect change in a democracy. You just have to seize the opportunity and do it. If you don't do it, you're going to be bound by what you fails to do.
You know, and also let me just add this, Mr. Hare, as a people, and what I was trying to say is we need to come out and vote from the beginning, from the beginning of the legislature in the beginning here, because if we don't do that, we're never going to be able to vote things that we want.
And I know we got the music on. I just want to close with Norm's thought here. Here's the core thought. You have to act like you want it.
Yes, sir.
If you don't act like you want it, you will not get it.
Right.
Or you will not keep it.
Absolutely.
You have to act like your life depends on it. Fight for it like your life depends on it, because your life does depend on it.
Yes, sir.
You can see they did this in Philadelphia. They did this in Detroit. They did this in Atlanta. Everywhere you saw, a large embodiment of African votes, they tried to destroy those votes. They tried to keep those votes from counting. You have to stop that from happening. You don't want abortion you don't want a woman's right to govern her body to be eviscerated. You better fight like you want it. If you don't want people to be taking your money and using it to feed profits, in private companies and taking that money away from childcare in your state or around the country, you have to fight like you want it. If you don't fight, you will not get it. That's the way this thing has to go.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
see you all on Friday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. See you all then.